Hello and welcome to Robin Minds. My name is Hero Daniels. Many thanks for joining us. Today we're going to be having a very important conversation, not just one conversation, obviously other conversations as well. For the past few weeks, I think there has been one word that has been on the lips of almost every Nigerian, and that is protest. To protest or not to protest. Now, here's my take. Whatever side of the divide that you are on, the truth of the matter is that times are really, really hard. From insecurity to inflation to food shortages and food inflation, people are beginning to resort to using cucumbers and watermelons to make their stews as opposed to tomatoes because tomatoes are very expensive. But the big question now is, would a protest be beneficial? Would a protest allow the voices of Nigerians, especially the young Nigerians, be heard? We're going to have that conversation. State of the nation, to protest or not to protest. And joining me from our Abuja studio is Ababiaka Ahmed, who is a public affairs analyst and social commentator. Hello, Ahmed. Good to have you on the show. Ahmed? All right. Yes, I can hear you. Fantastic. Good to have you on the show. Also joining us from our Abuja studio is Aisha Abdulkadir Yusuf. Good to have you, Aisha. All right. So, Ahmed, I'm going to quickly, before I introduce our guest in the studio, I'm going to quickly ask you, what is your take on a national protest?
Okay. Thank you very much. I think.
All right, I'm going to connect with you, Ahmed, very soon. Let's quickly chat with our guest in the studio, who is a public affairs analyst and a PR consultant in the person of Deyemi Saka. Welcome to the program.
Good afternoon. It's nice to be here. It's nice officially meeting. Don't let the viewers know what we're talking about.
That's totally fine. So I think times are really hard, and for the past couple of weeks, you've seen that both sides of the divide, there's been a bit of a tension. The government is trying as much as possible to avoid any kind of protest. I mean, they have every right and reason to, because look at what happened in Kenya and how it turned out. And then on the other hand, the people are saying that enough is enough, and I think it's time for us to go out to the street and let our voices be heard. What do you make of that situation?
Well, it's a dicey situation. I understand the anxiety, the apprehension part of government, but it's like this: the government laid its bed with thorns, they should bleed in it. We've had two protests in Nigeria, and it hasn't, to the best of my knowledge and my recollection, it was never violent. The first one was the NSAS, where the Ojota ground was more like a carnival. And I need to put this out there and to correct this.
Oh, you mean the Occupy Nigeria?
The Occupy Nigeria,
okay,
by Enough is Enough group. And the NSAS, which they probably, a lot of them are hinging the argument or building their sentiments on, is it's a representation of facts. It's a promotion of falsehood, and insulting the collective intelligence of Nigerians. And I'll tell you why. So Babajide Olusola Sanwo-Olu, the governor of Lagos State, declared a curfew. The protest was peaceful and was coordinated even without any form of leadership. And the few attempts we had at some record that to turn the protest violent was by quote and unquote people that could be said to be sympathizers of the government of the day. There's a popular picture in circulation. It hasn't been pulled down. The guy was appropriately identified as OSHA, brandishing the cutlass, approaching protesters at Alausa. It was said that it was widely reported and wasn't debunked that it came in one of those lag buses, and they attacked protesters at Alausa. Till today, that OSHA guy was never arrested, questioned, or probably charged to court for anything whatsoever. And the NSAS protest ended, officially ended by when the curfew kicks in. So what happened in Lagos after what I put at Lekki was not protesters, because the protest ended by the declaration or proclamation of curfew by the governor of Lagos State. So if anybody is trying to base his anxiety on NSAS, the probably person should be basing his anxiety on government's response to protest.
Okay, so we're going to still delve into that conversation, because we had a couple of private properties, not just even government properties, that were also destroyed as a result of, unscrupulous elements invading that particular NSAS protest.
Yeah, but right? No, invading Lagos State, not the protest, because the protest ended when the curfew kicked in.
Okay,
That's the truth.
We're gonna get back to that conversation, but I want to quickly connect with Ahmed. Ahmed, what are your thoughts on this particular proposed process?
Okay, there's no problem with protest. Every citizen have that fundamental right, as guaranteed by our constitution, to participate in protest, to demand for their rights in a peaceful and coordinated manner, so in such a way that it would not infringe on the rights of others who perhaps have a separate leaning ideologically with those that are protesting. So I think the proposed protest, as it's been branded, is faulty because of the recent experience of the NSAS that we had. You see, this thing about people comparing protests, and when you now ask that, well, who are those carrying out, who are those protesting? The narrative out there is that every Nigerian, everybody is hungry. Yes, we are hungry, everybody is angry, but we have different means or different idea about how the issues should be addressed or how government should be engaged. Now we have seen flyers about those that are trying to promote this, the promoters of this protest, and it's coming in a manner with which their identities are obscured. When you now go further to ask, who are the real people, who are those promoting this thing? They say it is hunger, it is a hardship, it is this, it is that. The same narrative, the same formula that came with NSAS. You know, when people talk about protest, we started, I was one of those who participated in the first, second, third, fourth day of the protest. The Alausa that the other guest was talking about, I was one of those that were there from the first day. I go there, go home, resume back, and, you know, and consistently, until a whole lot of things started coming in. People started bringing all sorts of ideas, to the extent that some people, because of lack of coordination, started getting the ideas that there is some certain buildings, they started sharing some certain buildings amongst themselves, properties, estates among themselves, that, wow, when this protest now gets to an end, when they succeed eventually in carrying out the protest, or to the logical conclusion, according to how they were being told, that a certain person is going to own the Ikeja City Mall, another one said he's going to own that building that was housing LIRS. You know, those were just things, just to get a feeler of the ideas of those that are participating in the process. So the lack of leadership in any kind of protest, I've seen where people are saying, at a certain point, people like Wole Soyinka and some other people participated or organized protests. Yes, those were protests that had people with identity. We could identify leaders. We could identify leadership. Nobody should be scared or preempt government on whether they are going to attack or persecute anybody for participating or leading a protest. In 2012, Pastor Tunde Bakare led the protest, the protest then, with a group called Save Nigerian Group, with an organization called Save Nigerian Group. He was everywhere promoting the protest through that group. Don't forget that Mr. Tunde Bakare was just lost an election less than a year before that time. In 2011, he was vice presidential candidate of the CPC, President Muhammadu Buhari's, former President Buhari's co-flag bearer, you know. So, you know, and he came out as a politician. He was a politician. Nobody persecuted him. He led the protest to a logical conclusion. If anything had happened to him, then I'm sure a whole lot of Nigerians are going to rise up and face the government or whoever persecutes him or molests him at that point. So,
Ahmad, there are several points that you have made. Yeah, sorry to interrupt you. There are several points that you have made, and I would really want to, like, you know, I want you to shed more light on those points, but I need to, you know, have another view of the conversation with our guest in studio. So I'm going to get back to you, and I'm going to have some follow-up questions based off of what you just said. So how do you react to all of the things you said?
Well,
some of the key points that Ahmad made was...
the logical conclusion of the Save Nigerian Group protest was the military intervention as ordered by former President Goodluck Jonathan. So we could not say the protest was concluded by Tunde Bakare. The government ended it. We are all living witness. I'm not too young, and at least you can see the grey beards. So we knew how it ended. So nobody cannot come here and peer on our faces and tell us it's raining. Tunde Bakare never concluded that protest. The government of the day ended it using brute force, but that wasn't brutal on people because the military force is brute. Secondly, I find it intellectually infuriating when somebody tells me, or someone's trying to tell me that because people were actually sharing buildings and everything, and that was the reason where he backed out. Yes, I'm not doubting his claims. I'm not saying it's false, but everybody will know that's probably people kidding themselves or catching fun. Even because even if it was there for 3-4 days, the protest was still on for like 5 days, 6 days afterwards. But I insist, I know he's not probably speaking to that fact, that the protest was peaceful across Lagos State until the governor of Lagos State proclaimed the curfew. And yes, we had people attacking protesters, and I can tell you where. There was one along Itire. Oh, really? It got that access, yeah. And that was when it was said that police shot at somebody. And it was not even protesters, National Union Road Transport Workers, and there was a fracas. People were being assaulted, people were being molested at Ketu, at Ogolonto. Where the flashpoints of the protest, the government of the day did not request, because we have to speak to that request at Lekki. Because to some of us that knows our military, we bring in military to into urban conflict resolution and what have you. They don't just, the commander-in-chief don't deploy in a democracy. Especially when you want to quell a protest. It's a request from the governor. So the governor requested for the military to come to Lagos State. They got to Lagos State with the security team, and the governor pointed Lekki to them. Not to Korodu Ogoloto that there were flashpoints. That's the procedure. Unless you want to tell us that the APC government ran a different procedure when it comes to deploying to combat, to deal with protests and civil disobedience. In a normal thing, the governor of the state needs to request, and the president will deploy. So I haven't put that out there. Let it be said and be accepted and acknowledged that the NSAT protest is giving these people anxiety. And it's not even the NSAT protest that's giving them anxiety. It is Kenya. Because they're scared. And yeah, probably even a national security advisor telling you that this protest might snowball into anarchy is right. And there's also a quick one for me. There's a jailbreak in Niger Republic where condemned or probably high-profile terrorists were released through the jailbreak. And they're going to filter into Nigeria and cause anarchy if this protest goes. There are conversations you could push forward, not the ones that will just irritate you and think, well, does this guy think at all?
All right. I'm going to take a cue from what you just said, which is you made mention, you just talked about the Kenyan protest, and you see that the President Ruto, made sure that he did everything he could to make sure that the protest stopped, inclusive of, sacking some of his cabinet members, and he had to even engage with the young people of Kenya on the X app.
And reverse the harsh policy that sparked up the protest.
So now I think the Nigerian government, they are trying to be 2 steps ahead of it. And I'm going to just quickly speak with Aisha as far the strategies that the government is actually deploying to make sure that this protest doesn't happen. We've seen that the president has had meetings with, his cabinet members, and, a lot of governors and the traditional rulers are also coming up with a lot of ideas so that this protest does not happen. Aisha, how would you rate the government's strategy in trying to stop this protest from happening?
Thank you very much. So, for me, I would say the president immediately taking action by making sure he invited the traditional rulers for a meeting to see that this protest doesn't happen, meaning that he's disturbed about the people and saying that the people are concerned, they are not happy with the way things are going in the economy. So, of course, he's trying to see how he can please the people, and having coming together with the traditional rulers to come up with ideas on how to prevent it, I feel it's a good one. And so I will rate it maybe, let's say 10 over 10.
In fact, driving down to the studio, there was this mad scarcity, full scarcity. I couldn't even get fuel to actually put in my car, right? A lot of Nigerians are truly suffering. There's how are things on your end? I think I have to start from there. How are things on your end economically?
Okay, I would say this. You know, people don't really see what happens behind closed doors. They only see the beauty of things outside. And not everyone comes out to say, oh, I'm having it hard, but we are all having it hard. It's not just the ordinary people. It's not just Nigeria alone, all over Africa. So I would say for me, honestly, I'm having it hard also. It's not easy, but I would say for the fuel scarcity, now, how do these black market people get fuel to even sell? And people are lining up for fuel scarcity. That's one of the issues we have. So, and I don't think this is President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's fault. So,
let's just take a step back. You're saying that, you know, the situation that is happening in the country shouldn't be blamed on the president. Is that your take? He's the commander in chief. He is actually the chief executive of this nation. He is in charge of making sure that, you know, protection of lives, property, and making sure that the economy bounces back. That's actually his job. So how is he not to be blamed?
Yes, but it's not only his job. That's why he has ministers, senators, aides to help him in this. That is why he appointed them, because he can't foresee the country alone. He needs help. So why put all the blame on just the president? What of the chairmen of local government? What of the governors? What of the senators? What of the House of Rep members? What of the ministers? What measures are they taking? So we can't just put the blame all on the president.
Okay, so Ahmed, I'm going to just circle back to you. I'm going to quickly circle back to you, Ahmed. You did mention when you were, you know, when you were talking about the initial question I asked you, you said that the young people of Nigeria should find other means to engage the government as opposed to going on the streets to protest. What other means are you talking about? Because I know a lot of people have been tweeting on social media. A lot of people have been, you know, trying to make their voices heard, and it seems like nobody's hearing them. And it looks like the protest is the last resort. So what other means are you talking about?
Okay, so I think it all boils down to leadership. You see, when we protests are good, they are very good channels to communicate the citizens or people's anger with the government, to the government. But you see, a situation where the government is communicating. I can count in the last 3-4 weeks how many times Mr. President, you know, has spoken to the people through his aide and personally by himself, after or during his engagement with traditional rulers, religious leaders, and other stakeholders in the country. Recently, I've seen, talking about the youth now, I've seen where government engaged some youth groups and students' leadership in activities or in talks and advocacies, things that are directly impactful. Talking about the grants and some other loans, soft loans, you know, that has to do with the empowerment of the youth, one of the cardinal objectives that the protest intends to achieve. So, you know, when we come to this, a lot of people are not getting the message, or they are not communicating, they are not intending to communicate, because there is a group, there are certain hands behind the scenes that are directing some kind of narrative behind the scenes on social media. Unfortunately, you know, bad news travels. A lot of these stakeholders go ahead and, you know, they want to capitalize on the anger, the hunger, and the hardship on the country. This government has stayed just 1 year out of 4. It is important that we know this, that it's just 1 year out of 4, and a lot of reforms have happened. There is a lot that has gone on. You know, when some people said that the president mentioned the subsidy is gone the first day in office. If the president had not mentioned that, the government will have been borrowing 400 billion every month to subsidize petrol.
Ahmed.
That couldn't have been sustainable.
Ahmed.
Yes.
Yes, I understand.
Yes,
I understand that you're well versed with what the government is actually doing to, you know, sort of make everybody calm down, especially the young people. But you did make a statement. You were like, the president has been, you know, speaking through, of course, his ministers and, you know, all the other elected officials. Is there a reason why we haven't had a national address from the president himself speaking heart to heart to Nigerians? Because, you know, you just also made mention of the fuel subsidy. When the president actually announced that fuel subsidy gone, we understood the sacrifice that we're getting into. But again, while the effects, the aftermaths, which is obviously inflation and everything, while we are all in this together, I think also the citizens were aggravated by the fact that, you know, you now start hearing things about acquiring private jets, you know, you start hearing the government, it looks like there's no cut down on government expenditure. So if the citizens are bearing the brunt of the sacrifice, why haven't we seen an exemplary, you know, why haven't we seen exemplary leadership by the government officials also cutting down on things just so that we can all suffer together?
Okay. Okay, I understand. I get your question now. So, you see, acquiring, one of the examples that you mentioned, acquiring a private jet, does not translate to luxury for the president of the country. That is a national asset. Perhaps the timing of it might be wrong or might have issues, but it's a matter of national security that the president's life has to be secured. I'm not justifying the fact that people are suffering and that we are going on such expenditure. So I think it is important to now look at what is the president, what is the country, the government even doing on their own side. The state governments have had their revenue increase at over 100% since the removal of that fuel subsidy. Now, there is also the introduction of student loan. There are other things that are going on. The student loan, where it is guaranteed that throughout the life of this administration, you would not have any reason, any logical reason for students or the organized labor, ASU or anybody to go on strike, as the president has promised during his campaigns. So I think it is important we look at these positives. It is not all bad, bad, bad. So there is a need. There is a need
very
for
quickly.
us to observe what the president is doing.
Yeah, we have 2 minutes before we go on a break.
Yes.
We just have 2 minutes before we go on a break.
Okay.
In 30 seconds, is there a reason why we haven't gotten a national address from the president himself? Is there a reason?
Okay, so the president has been engaging at every point in time when the president engages stakeholders of this country. I think he's speaking with the entire Nigerians. With the entire Nigeria. He met with the traditional rulers, religious leaders, met with everybody across board.
Okay.
The government
thank you very much.
I think that suffices for national address.
All right. Thank you very much, Ahmed.
We can as well ask that the president
we have less
also
than 60
address,
seconds.
Specifically have it.
I understand. Thank you very much, Ahmed. We have 60 seconds.
Let me quickly compress everything.
You have just
I know. I'm going to compress everything.
So that we can say.
Anybody saying we should not blame the Mr. President does it probably is one of the constitution and constitutional powers that lies with Mr. President. Everybody, every organization in the country, the president is the chairman as enshrined in the constitution. It was talking about subsidy. It was on record that even NNPC is still paying subsidy, and it wasn't denied. Because the proceeds from the liquefied natural gas was used to pay subsidy last year. So, what's the budget of the State House? Like you rightly said, you're telling us to tighten our belts. You guys are loosening your belt because they're getting fatter. It doesn't add up.
All right.
And Nigerians, you see, there's no other, whatever they want to talk about, it's very difficult to defend a government. They said 1 year in office. You probably know the grade we graduated university from the 400 level. And you cannot say you're trying to take us out of a mess. Like Buhari plunged us 30 feet down, and for you to take us out, saying recovery, you're plunging us 70 feet down. So that means if you take us forever, we should forget about coming out of this mess. So they don't have an excuse. It's quite silly trying to make excuses for what should not be done.
All right, thank you very much, there, Misaka, for
You're welcome.
on the program. Aisha, we would also like to thank you, but before you leave, just give us like 30 seconds of your closing statement, please.
Okay. For one, I would love to plead with my fellow Nigerians and youths. I feel protest is not the solution because we do not know how it might turn out to be. Yes, everybody has a right to protest, but how do you think it might turn out? Because there might be some hoodlums who are just waiting for an opportunity to see that they have access to destroy a lot of things. So I beg fellow Nigerians to please, why not let's find another way to tackle these issues rather than having a protest.
Thank you very much, Aisha, and thank you, Ahmed, for coming on the program. Robin Mind continues after this break. Stay with us.